Afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to have the opportunity to welcome you all this evening to our UCC MBA online open evening. Considering undertaking an MBA is very exciting, but also a very big decision. And the purpose of our event this evening is to speak to you a little bit about UCC's MBA and some of its unique features and strengths. We'll also give you the opportunity this evening to speak to some of our faculty members who deliver on the programme, and they'll talk to you about their modules and their content and some of their unique research areas of expertise. And finally, but most importantly, we also are joined by three of our recent graduates, Morgan, Elaine and Alan, who have kindly joined us this evening to talk about their MBA experience and how it is that they have benefited from the programme. So thank you particularly to Morgan and Elaine and Alan for joining us. Before we begin, I'd like to remind you that the chat function is available, so we please would encourage you all to populate the chat question with any questions, comments, queries, and we'll incorporate them into the session. Please also note that the session is being recorded and may be used afterwards as an informational segment. So please do pop stuff into the chat function as it occurs to you. We would really like to address as many questions as we can this evening. Right, to kick off the proceedings, and we really do appreciate everybody joining, but we would like to kick off by inviting our Dean, Professor Thea Hennessy, to speak to us a little bit about our school and where the MBA is positioned in that school. Professor Hennessy has done a superb job in leading our school through the past turbulent years with a sense of calmness and strength and compassion. And in doing so, she has managed to ensure that we've achieved all of our strategic goals and embodies some of the leadership strengths and strategies that we try to that we speak to in our MBA program. So Thea, perhaps I could ask you to come on board and talk to us a little bit about that, all those strategic objectives that you've managed to achieve in the last couple of years.
Sure, thanks very much, Michelle, and thanks for the nice introduction. And good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Great to see so many prospective participants for the MBA online, and hoping to see many of you in person this autumn when the programme kicks off. So just to say a little bit about the MBA and the business school. So the MBA is really our flagship programme. It's the executive part-time MBA programme. Some of our best faculty from across the school teach on the MBA programme, research active faculty who are bringing into the classroom their latest cutting edge research, and it's really informing their teaching. And I think there's lots of exciting new developments lying ahead with this year's programme as well. New study trip, and I'm sure we'll hear more about that later from the different contributors. Just to say a little bit about the business school then, the MBA programme is accredited by the Association of MBAs internationally. So what that tells you as a prospective student is that it meets all of the quality assurance measures that association puts in place. Periodically, we go through a review process where faculty from other accredited universities come and visit us. They meet current MBA students, they meet alumni of the MBA programme, they meet the faculty, they look at the teaching material, they look at the assessments, and they decide whether to accredit us or not, again, for the next cycle of MBA. So it's a really important quality assurance mark, and what it gives you is the reassurance that the education you'll receive on the MBA programme in UCC is at a par with all of the other accredited MBA programmes globally. Apart from that AMBA accreditation, the business school more generally also has AACSB accreditation, which is another international accrediting body. Similar process, but it covers all of the programs in the school. Again, we're reviewed by peers globally who come and visit us in UCC and examine everything we're doing. And by way of having those two accreditations, AMBA and AACSB, it puts us in the top 200 business schools in the world. So again, for you as prospective students, it's really a quality assurance measure and giving you the reassurance that the education is top quality. So the business school, CUBS, was founded in 2016, dating back on the back of a long history of business education in the university of over 100 years. We're now Ireland's largest business school. We have almost 4,000 students and nearly 200 staff at the undergraduate, postgraduate, PhD level, including a number of executive part-time programs like the MBA. The university acquired the Irish Management Institute in 2016 that some of you may be familiar with. That's Ireland's largest executive education body with a campus in Dublin. And there's close links between the MBA programme and the Irish Management Institute. So you'll hear from some of the faculty from the IMI on this programme as well. And again, they're very much in the leadership development space. The other exciting project that we have in terms of the future development of the business school is our new building. So we have acquired a site in the centre of Cork City, and we're currently at the planning permission stage, and the plan is to invest over 100 million by the university into that site over the coming years, and eventually to relocate all business education from the main UCC campus to the new business school building in the city centre. So that's another very exciting project. So look, they're the words of welcome from me, really, just to give you some background to the business school and where the MBA fits within the business school. And as I say, delighted to see so many people online this evening, and hoping to see you all in person later in the year when you start your MBA programme. So thank you very much, Michelle. I'll hand back to you.
Thank you, Thea, and thank you so much. Just to begin, is that our executive education is already delivered right in the city centre in Lapskey, in that state-of-the-art facility, and that's where all of the MBA classes take place, which is just something that we might mention at this point. Other than that, I suppose I'll just introduce myself properly. So my name is Dr. Michelle Carr, and along with Ronan Carber, who's on the call here, and Senan, we direct the MBA programme here at UCC. I and Ronan have been delivering on the programme for about 10 years, but are newly appointed programme directors. But Senan is our real boss and has been involved in the programme for many cohorts now, and is our strongest asset. Undertaking an MBA, I think someone's going to start sharing my slides there now, but just to give you an idea, Hello, hi, was I muted there the whole time? I think I was.
No, just for the last second there, Michelle.
Oh,
you're okay.
Perfect, now. Thanks, Thea. So I'm not sure if I can change the slides. Muting. Andrew, you might just skip ahead a couple of slides there to the nutshell slide if you don't mind. Yeah, you can keep going. Super, perfect. Thank you, Andrew. So as I mentioned earlier on, doing an MBA is a really big decision, and I suppose in a nutshell, what do we try to achieve when we are setting out with an MBA cohort? And in essence, what we're trying to do is develop your cross-functional expertise. So very often we become very operational and silo in our roles, and the purpose of completing an MBA is to develop those cross-functional expertise so that you're able to deliver organizational change with greater confidence. So that you can make those tough decisions which enable you to drive performance and sustain. And I suppose when we're doing all of that, we keep three things in mind, or three things that we're trying to develop across all of the various aspects of the programme. And those three things that we underpin all of our programmes are making sure that we are challenging your thinking throughout the programme, that we're enhancing your communication skills, and that we're improving your decision-making capabilities. And doing all of that, we believe, allows you to improve your balance throughout your organisational work life, but also your professional skills and capabilities, so that you become what we refer to as sustained, resilient leader. And that helps, and that's kind of in an MBA what we're trying to achieve. The MBA has recently undergone slight modifications to allow us to develop that emerging, kind of make sure that we're managing emerging needs. So we might just click on there to the next slide. So kind of minor tweaks that we've made to the programme in the last couple of months have been to respond to those emerging needs. And one of those has been to look at our delivery structure. So going forward, we're going to deliver our MBA on a 3-day block release structure. So it'll be a Thursday and Friday and a Saturday from 9 to 6. We'll speak to you a little bit more about the specifics of that in a little while, but that's something new and innovative, which we believe will allow the learning in the programme to be embedded a little bit better, and also allow you to balance those work-life commitments a little bit easier. We've also done something quite unique in the MBA space, in that we have enhanced our international perspective. We've expanded our study trip from a 3-day study trip to a 4 or 5-day international study trip, in order for you to put the practice of what you've actually learned in the classroom into an international context, to further your cultural experience. That's one other unique aspect of our MBA programme. The third thing that we like to highlight is the personalised nature of the MBA. We have a limited class size between 30 and 35. There's regular feedback and engagement with our faculty, and a completely and utterly open door policy in terms of how it is that faculty engage with our MBA candidates throughout the 2 years of their programme. And finally, as Thea mentioned, prominent faculty from across our business school deliver on our MBA programme, and our programme is accredited by AMBA and AA CSB to ensure that the programme that you're undertaking is of international standard and international calibre. So I suppose in a nutshell, therefore, we've outlined why it is what underpins our MBA and some of the kind of unique characteristics that we have developed in recent times. In the next slide, just really briefly, I suppose things to consider when you're thinking about doing an MBA and what you'll get from it, and see if any of these, when you're thinking about completing an MBA, do any of these speak to why it is that you're thinking about doing an MBA program. And these are some of the reasons that past participants have given us as the main reasons why they have chose to undertake an MBA and the benefits that they've actually gotten from an MBA. And some of our graduates might speak to these later this afternoon. So it allows them to develop a kind of a problem-solving approach to doing and to their work-life balance. So if you're finding at work that it's taking you longer than some of your colleagues to make decisions, to amalgamate information, to inform your decision making, sometimes the techniques and tools that are used in the MBA can allow you to make those decisions quicker and with more confidence. It also allows you to bring a global perspective into your work, both through the teachings and the peer-to-peer discussions, and also through the international study trip. You'll definitely be exposed to diverse viewpoints, not only from faculty members, but also most particularly from the classroom participants. So one of the strongest elements of an MBA program is that peer-to-peer discussion. You've got people from a vast number of industries and a vast array of, you've got engineers and scientists and accountants and marketing executives in a classroom for 2 years, learning each other's viewpoints and expressing various ways of tackling a problem. And that allows you to appreciate those diverse views, but also develop those meaningful relationships and join that really extensive alumni, all leading from those class discussions. So if I just very quickly move on to the next slide, and I'll pass you over to my colleague Ronan, but how it is that we achieve all of those benefits of doing an MBA are guided by our program's learning outcomes. And those learning outcomes talk to the idea of developing your communication and working effectively to a really high professional standard. And that's embedded across all of our modules and assignments, etc. To demonstrate advanced analytical and problem-solving skills associated with effective practice, and also engage in the advanced application of frameworks and techniques in different contexts and in different organizational settings. We also work to make sure that we develop your leadership and transformational skills in order that you can practice those in the organizations and the roles that you're currently involved in. And those couple of slides just synopsize the kind of the principles underpinning our MBA program here at UCC. If there's any questions or chat questions there on that, we'd be happy to work away with them. I don't see anything in the chat function. So Ronan, I might pass over to you at that point and you might talk to us about some of the core content within the programme.
Great, thanks Michelle. Andrew, if you wouldn't mind moving on to the next slide, please. And so as Michelle said, my name is Ronan Carberry and I'm co-director of the programme with Michelle. So just to talk you through the delivery of the programme. So we have moved away from a model whereby students would come in every weekend for 12 weekends straight to more of a block delivery model for the program starting in September. So that's going to be delivered in 4 parts or 4 semesters over 2 years, and part 1 takes place between September and December. Then we have January to April for each of the 2 years of the program. Now these lecture blocks, they're going to be scheduled on a full Thursday, Friday and Saturday in Laps Key. So it's going to be 3 days on average once a month over the course of the year, and there are going to be breaks then obviously between so you'll have 3 weekends off to allow you to prepare your assignments, to complete the assignments then as well as part of that. And in addition to that then as well, so we can provide anyone with the dates. If you are interested in the specific dates for these blocks, we can provide you with them now. But there's also a week-long study trip then in the 2nd semester in the 1st year. Now, if you could move on to the next slide then, Andrew. The next part of the program then is the leadership development framework. And this is essentially the spine or the core thread that's running through the entirety of the 2 years, and then culminates in a leadership project then in the final semester. And this is delivered across all 4 parts of the MBA. So in the first semester, for example, as part of the orientation and workshop at the beginning of the program, we'll focus on specific leadership challenges maybe that you face as an individual or that you face within your organization. In part 2 then, we focus more on business research methods and consultancy skills as part of the leadership development framework then. And then that's really expanded upon then in part 3 as part of the international study trip, where we focus on sustainable leadership. And then it culminates then, as I said, within the final semester of with an individual leadership project. Just to talk a little bit about the study trip then. On the next slide. So in April 2024, we will be going to Barcelona. So from the 8th to the 14th of April. And what that involves is that so there's a variety of activities taking place as part of that. There's a number of guest speakers coming in to speak to the entire class in different sectors within Barcelona. There's 2 days dedicated to consulting on corporate business challenges in small teams. There's going to be a number of company presentations. We're going to be visiting a business school then in Barcelona then as well. So it's a really intensive piece of work that's really focused on situating your leadership journey in an international context, and then also having to consider different cultural frameworks for understanding your own leadership journey as well. And if you could move on to the next slide then, Andrew. In terms of the specific modules then that you'll be studying as part of the program, we're going to be, I suppose at the beginning we'll start out in the first semester providing you with an understanding of the core disciplines by exploring some, I suppose, key modules in the context of I teach HRM, for example. We're going to be looking at sustainability and governance, the focus on leadership development, operations management, organizational decision making and strategy. And breaking it down semester by semester then, if we look at part 1 in the next slide, Andrew. So they're the dates then for part 1. So we can see that you will come in September, twice in September, once in October, once in November, and then then again at the end of November then as well. And the specific modules covered then as part of that part are on the next slide. So Michelle will be teaching at the beginning of the program on an accounting module, managerial control and performance. We have an economics module then that's focused on the economics for strategic business development. Organizational behavior then will be followed then by my module, managing human resources. So part 2 then, the dates there, so coming in once in January, once in February, once in March, and then we do the study visit then in April. The modules that are provided on that particular semester, we have an accounting module, financial analysis and investment, the operations and supply chain management module. We have an economics for global business module, and then this study visit module then as well, you can see is labeled managing change in an international context. So that's the first year of the program. And then in September 2024, again, we'll be coming back for 5 blocks as part of this semester. And then the modules that will be covered and with this particular part are, we have an international strategy and governance module. We have a business information systems module, which is focused on leading responsible innovation and digital transformation, followed by an ethics and sustainability module and a strategic marketing module as well. So then the final part of the program then will take place in January 2025. And that again has 5 parts as part of this. Now, this is I suppose, this is the culmination of the program. So you can see here there's 2 major pieces of work that you will do here as part of this semester. You'll have the option of doing one of 2 electives. We have a public sector elective or a people and talent management elective. So you can choose one of those. And then that will be followed by an integrated strategy project, which will be taught by Professor Thomas Lawton, who will talk about that, his module in a few minutes. And then the culmination of this leadership development framework, which as I said is the spine of the program, will be delivered by Professor Thomas Garvin. And that then is, as I said, these are 2, so you can see the there's double the credits, double the number of hours there compared to most of the other modules. So these are quite big pieces of work which tie together the entirety of the MBA framework. So what we might do now, if that's okay, I might just ask a few people just to provide some, and just to give you an insight in terms of what's covered on their modules. That's okay. So I might call on Professor Thomas Garvin first. If you could just give a brief overview, Tom, in terms of what you delivered as part of your leadership module in the last semester and what incoming students can expect from your module.
Okay, thank you very much, Ronan. Good evening, all prospective participants and my peers and colleagues here. I'm really delighted to talk about the leadership project which I taught in the last semester, and which, as Ronan has pointed out, is a capstone, a very important capstone component of the MBA program. I'll just tell you a little bit about the approach I took and the philosophy that underpins it. Consistent with the CUBS strategy, I took a responsible leadership development approach. I focused on strengths-based development, and I also focused very much on understanding yourself as a leader. Those are very important pieces. Therefore, it did not follow what you might call the traditional jug and mug or talk and chalk type approach. There was quite a lot of individual psychometric assessment as part of it, and a very large, or significant, I would say, individual assignment that's highly reflective, self-evaluative, and looks really at your leadership journey to date, how you got there, the significant milestones in that journey, your development over the period of your leadership, where you are now, and where you see yourself going. And we also addressed issues around your leader identity and how you see the process of leadership. So those, in a way, represented the key components, all coalesced into an individual assignment and presentation with feedback. And as part of that, I brought in our adjunct professor, Professor Anne-Marie Gill, who is a highly respected practitioner of leadership development. She came in to listen to all of the assignments, the presentations, to give very positive, constructive and evaluative feedback, and to really commend the whole participant group. And the two pieces of learning that I got out of running this module for the first time in UCC is that it brought all the class together very much. They really became a very cohesive unit. They learned, students told me they learned an awful lot about each other that they didn't know previously. And where there might have been subgroups in the class, the whole methodology, the way of doing it, and LAPS Key allows for that because of the very large and wonderful room that's there. We were able to bring all of the group together as a very cohesive team, and they were all very supportive. And the second piece of feedback that I got back from it, very interesting, is that for quite a number of participants, it threw up some very interesting insights about themselves, their own personal development, things that they might have been insecure about, and what it is they're about as a leader. So really, there was a very fundamental trajectory of personal development underpinning the program. So that, in essence, captures what that particular module is about. And as Ron has rightly pointed out, it's doubly weighted compared to some of the other modules.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, Tom. Anthony, I might just call on you then. You're also in the same part 4 and delivering the People and Talent Management Elective. Can I ask you just to give a brief overview of your module, please?
Perfect. Thanks, Ronan, and welcome everybody. It's great to see a good attendance and interest in the program. So yeah, this is a new module that ran for the first time in the last cohort, and I think went very well. So I guess this module builds on the Managing Human Resources module from part 1 with Ronan. In the context of it focuses on people and talent management issues. It has a very strong research base and with a very heavy practice involvement. So I guess my own research area of expertise is around talent management, high performers and high potential. So we do place a good degree of focus on that within the module, and looking at, I guess, the challenges and the tensions in managing high performers, high potentials. Also looking at aspects around managing underperformance, and how you might deal with that. And I guess a central aspect of that is the module brings in some lead leading industry, I guess, contributors. So in the last delivery, there was a full day, I guess, of workshops of managing aspects around performance, underperformance, and so forth, with Caroline Reedy of the HR suite, who'll be a regular contributor to debates on the future of work. Also, an adjunct professor of ours in the business school, Mike Crowley, who is the HR director for Stryker and previously of Pfizer, and also I know Dean mentioned previously the Irish Management Institute, but Dr. Colin Foster, who is head of executive education there, also did quite a bit of work on the module around leading and developing high performance teams. So again, you know, some of the content covered is around STARS, portability of performance, attracting, selecting, and retaining talent, and I guess, you know, taking the view of the role of the MBA cohort as leading teams and senior functions, and not necessarily HR expertise around that. The assessment then is very much focused, I guess, on building in research insights with practice. So it's a practice research analysis that ultimately sees each participant on the module decide, I guess, on a particular area around people and talent management that they have going on within the organization, and ultimately works on applying some of the frameworks covered within the module and applying that. So it's very much focused on that application and relevance to you as a student in terms of what you're currently going through in your role, or where you perhaps envisage maybe yourself dealing with over the short to medium term in your roles. Again, I guess it's a highly interactive module. I know Tom Garvin mentioned that in terms of his module, but I think that, you know, the program is very much set up that way, really highly interactive, and there's an element of I guess both feeding and feasting with that participant input. So again, a lot of the module is very much delivered around discussion points, questions, applied issues, and also ultimately we spend most of the day ultimately talking through, debating the odd fight and so forth around how we manage some of these tensions. And I think that's the key kind of piece of, if we're trying to break it down into a few small words, is this whole area is typically always managing in the grey, but with frameworks to work within. So we spend a lot of time as a group and the contributors that come in of actually how do you manage some of the greyness that can go on at times, and how do you use frameworks, how do you use insights and data perhaps to make better informed decisions. So yeah, Ronan, happy to hand back to you.
Thanks, Anthony. So we've heard from Anthony about people management, and we've heard from Tom Garvin about the leadership development program. We might just ask Professor Vincent O'Connell to speak to us a few minutes about the accounting elements of the program. Vincent, are you there?
Yeah, I'm there.
Hi, Vincent.
Yeah, thanks very much, Michelle. Thank you. And thanks to all of the colleagues for what they've said earlier. My name is Vincent O'Connell, and I'm Professor of Accounting, and I've actually taught on MBA programs in, I think, 14 different countries. So I've kind of had a lot of experience, you know, in different cultures, different environments, but a number of key themes come across whenever you're teaching accounting on an MBA program anywhere. And I think these are themes that myself and Michelle, who are teaching the two modules, are very conscious of. Now, these are kind of ones specifically that I focus a lot on, but Michelle might, you know, have different views later. But, you know, the things I kind of try to do on the course, the first thing is to overcome fear. A lot of people in business, they have a fear of numbers, and this holds back their careers enormously. It's something that will stop them from progressing in their careers long term. And if, as a professor on the MBA program, if we can help people overcome that fear, you know, we've really achieved the most important goal, regardless of the individual goals of the subjects. The second thing, obviously, you need a knowledge base. Now, you can get that maybe from, you know, other YouTube and things like that these days to a certain extent. So what we need to do is to give you the proper knowledge base and a very applied knowledge base as well. Now, in that context, we don't assume any prior knowledge of accounting. Personally, I assume that you probably hate the subject, and we can then take it from there and show you how it's actually extremely useful, and it's not that scary, and it's something that can benefit you long term. The other point then is that we have a duty really to support our colleagues. For example, Thomas earlier, he spoke about the idea of leadership. And I think we can make an important contribution how accounting can help people develop their leadership skills, how it can contribute to their contribution as managers, as leaders. And the same thing with Anthony there in terms of strategy. Accounting can play a crucial role in terms of developing, implementing, and strategy and measuring performance. Now, we can give you some of the core tools that are necessary to really understand those dimensions. So, even from an entrepreneurship point of view, we hope that we will be able to push, give you the tools and give you the focus that you need for developing your own business, for example, or working in a very entrepreneurial organization. The last thing then is, the focus that we have in the classroom. Certainly Michelle and myself, we have a very practical focus. Now, we both have a lot of interest in theoretical dimensions to the subject, and we get those in, but from a very practical point of view. So our classroom style, I think, is very non-traditional, and we encourage, people to get involved in discussions and what, for example, last time that I taught on the program in UCC, one of the groups did a project on Tesla, and this was back in 2019. And they were really adamant to all of us in the group, in the class, that this was really worthy of investment at that time. I ignored them, unfortunately, but they were fully the price went up. I think I'd have to go back and measure it, but I think from 10 times. So that was a regret. So the lesson is, the additional lesson for me was listen more carefully to the MBA students as well. Okay, so I've got on a bit there, but if you have any questions, I'll get back. Don't hesitate. So back to you, Michelle. Thanks for that.
Super, Vincent, and I would agree with everything you said around the key elements that we bring to the accounting programs. I suppose just to add that we don't necessarily try to teach anyone on the MBA program to be an accountant. Our objective fundamentally is to enable you to communicate better with the finance function within your organization. So while, for example, I teach things like budgeting and target setting and KPIs, etc., we don't necessarily spend a lot of time looking at the dynamics or how it is that those numbers are formulated, but much more discussion around their behavioral implications and what type of motivations those numbers actually have. And then there's a very strong link between accounting and strategy, and accounting systems should be there to ensure that the strategy of the organization is achieved. So this might be a nice opportunity to bring in Professor Thomas Lawton, who is our international strategy professor, to talk about how it is that he helps bring those issues to mind. Tom, are you there?
I am indeed. Thank you, Michelle. And thank you, Vincent. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you perfectly. Thanks, Tom.
Apologies, folks. I'm on the move, as you might guess from my backdrop, but hopefully you can hear me okay. Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for making time to be with us today. As Michelle mentioned, I'm the Professor of Strategy and International Business at CUBS. And a bit like Vincent, I have a lot of experience abroad as well. Most of my career, almost 30 years of my career, was outside of Ireland. I came back a couple of years ago. So really, I'm bringing that to bear, and also obviously comparative context. And in that context, I think the CUBS, the UCC MBA, is really a great product. I think we have a great bunch of people. We try to put our best and brightest, so to speak, onto the program. And I think also we're very focused on fusing cutting edge research, latest thinking, new ideas, and practical insights and application throughout the program. What I do is I run what's called the Integrated Strategy Project. And the Integrated Strategy Project comes towards the end of the MBA. It really is meant to be a capstone, pulling together a lot of previous learning, previous ideas from Vincent and Anthony and Tom G and other people on the program. It's a very applied learning. in that what we try to do is the program, the module is built around my own work. So published work, my research, but also my consulting work over the last 25 to 30 years. And the first thing I try to do, I guess, is to demystify strategy. I think strategy is one of those words that, like innovation and some other words perhaps, that's overused and abused by many people. And I think the people often don't have a sense of what exactly is strategy, or perhaps they don't have an agreed understanding amongst the team as to what strategy is. So demystifying strategy and then giving you a system, a method for doing strategy is really a large part of what I'm trying to do here. So we work through, we look at vision, we look at value proposition, we look at business model, we look at implementation, ideas and techniques. We look at leadership capabilities around strategy. The sun's coming over the wall here and catching me, but I'll try to keep going here. And we pull all that together in one model or one system, if you will, that, as I said, we apply. The way in which we work the module is at the very beginning, people are already in teams and groups. We will focus on live learning, live action by focusing on one company. Doesn't always have to be a company, by the way. If it's public sector, we can focus on something there, or third sector, nonprofit, but mostly it's companies, big and small. We'll focus on a company that's represented in the group by at least one of the people. And then we'll do a deep dive into that company, do a critical consulting piece, if you will, over the course of the weeks that we're together, where we will interrogate the qualitative, the quantitative data that we can get from that company, the people and the process, to really get under the skin of what's happening in that organization. And what we're really focused on is growth, strategic growth. And I would say typically the kind of companies we're looking at are two types. One is a company that perhaps is underperforming, maybe even failing or flatlining at least. And we're figuring out how do we turn it around? But it's more than turnaround. It's turnaround plus, in that we're focusing on a growth trajectory. And then the second type of organization that we usually look at is an organization that has reached a certain level of growth and is trying to take it to the next level, which might mean internationalization, for instance. So we'll focus on that sort of taking it to the next level of growth. So as I said, we'll work through that. We'll critically assess that. We won't take anything at face value. We will use the frameworks, the ideas, the techniques, tried and tested from the class, based, as I said, on my own research and my consulting and advisory work over the years. And we will produce a consulting report effectively at the end of that, which can be and often is used by people in real life and in practice thereafter. The other part of so that's part of the assessment. That's the biggest part of the assessment. And then the other part of the assessment is an individual reflective piece, which really is trying to assess, and again, it's pulling together the learning of the whole program, your evolution, your development as a strategist or as a strategic leader, to be more accurate. The kind of insights on that, the pros and cons, how you've made that happen, what maybe could be done better or differently, and so on and so forth. So it's really a critical reflection on that. Final point is, it's a terrific group of people. I really say the latest cohort, the previous cohort, really varied group of people, but all great attitude, real enthusiasm, real energy, real intelligence in the room. So it's a really pleasure to work with these people. Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you so much, Tom. We really appreciate your insights and expertise in the programme. And a similar thank you to all of the faculty who joined us this afternoon. We really are lucky with the calibre of faculty that deliver on the programme, and the commitment that faculty then subsequently deliver is testament. And perhaps I could ask some of the graduates who kindly joined us this evening, Morgan, Alan and Elaine, I think you're still on our call. Could I ask you to talk to some of what you've heard this afternoon? Particularly in terms of maybe some of the key features or the key highlights for you of the programme. So what parts of the programme really stood out from the leadership development, the study trip, to the capstone modules there at the end, etc. Elaine, could I actually ask you perhaps first to give us your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I'd be absolutely delighted, and just wish the best of luck to whomever does decide to take on the quite honestly fantastic journey that the MBA has been for me personally, from the people who are on the webinar. To answer your question, Michelle, I think how you've highlighted the module so far is really testament to how my journey went. It really did culminate in the modules that both the Thomases just talked to there, and then also I was did the talent one with Anthony. And I think what really highlighted and what came from both of the lectures, or all of the lectures there, was that psychologically safe environment that's there in the MBA. We really had it, but that was really based from everything from the previous three sections and modules, and that environment allowed us to grow that exponentially more. And I think that growth in my own personal and professional life has been exponential and has been very, very significant. I'm using different language that I didn't use before. I wouldn't have used the term psychologically safe environment before now. So it's those things that have really helped me. I'm much more in tune and better able to serve my team. So I work in a medical device. I work in the medtech sector. I lead a team of diverse people from both gender but also background. So I have people leaders, project leaders, engineers, technical leaders all reporting into me. So being able to have the confidence and the language and the skills to interact and ensure that their development is where it needs to be is one side of things, but then also those business foundationals, so that I can really position my department in the best way it can be within the business, and to be able to serve the business even more. I think that's a very broad view of it, but I think, to be honest, some of the highlights are the lectures that or the modules that you have here, that you've already talked to, were some of my highlights. And even the ones that I didn't enjoy too much, I learned a lot from, even more than the ones that I did enjoy.
Fantastic. Thanks, Lee. We might come back to you again, but for the moment, we might just revert to Alan for a few moments. Alan,
yeah.
Do you want to give us a snapshot of what you thought of the programme?
Yeah, hi everyone, I'm Alan Russell. I'm an IT director with PCH International. It's a global logistics and supply chain company. And I can't speak highly enough of the MBA. Honestly, if you're on the fence, it's 100% one of the best decisions you make. Like from a tacit knowledge point of view, they touched on a lot of the areas there, but it's such a wide-reaching MBA. Like you cover everything from like finance and accounting to HR, supply chains, economics, digital transformation, things like ethics, sustainability, and like the public sector. It gives you such a strong base in tacit knowledge that you're able to bring back to your company. And then, like as Tom Lawton mentioned, and Tom Garvin, the work that they do at the end, then it's kind of a capstone of the whole thing, where it brings your own personal leadership development together, and it also brings a corporate strategy element of it, where you get to show everything that you've learned over that period of time, and you'll end up bringing all that stuff back to your own company. Like it will get to the point where they start rolling their eyes when they see you walking towards them, because you're after finding a new improvement that they can make. But that's all good. But so like that's the tacit knowledge side of it, what you get out of it. But the way that it's structured as well, the lecturers are so good at driving in-class conversation. Like you learn all the stuff in the course material, but you learn from your class too is incredible. Like there's massive diversity across the class in terms of jobs. In our class alone, like Elaine will probably and Morgan will be able to add some of these. Like we had a radiologist, we had like a PhD in aerospace, we had a founder of Oztag, we had the MD of a chocolate company, like we had the head of sport in UCC. So all these people are bringing different perspectives, and you'll almost take more learnings from them and how they approach problems and address them, as much as you will from the course material. So I thought that was incredible. The probably the last few things I said as well, from a professional perspective, a lot of people said to me, like, when you get the MBA, it gets you a seat at the table, and that's kind of a nice throwaway term. And yes, when you have the letters after your name, it does open up doors for you. But I found it's far more about being able to keep your seat at the table. It's one thing to be able to get into these positions. Now you have your MBA, where you'll have such a knowledge base that you'll be able to hold conversations with every faction of your company, and your confidence will grow itself. You'll be able to assert yourself in these conversations, which you previously might not have been able to do so. So from a professional perspective, it's amazing for that. And like being blunt, even doing the MBA, you're going to become a massive asset to your company, and you're going to have a lot of leverage for where you want your career to go. And whether it's getting job opportunities from elsewhere, or whether it's using those or leveraging it internally to push on your own career, it'll open all those doors which you might not necessarily get otherwise. So yeah, I can't speak highly enough of that.
Thanks very much, Alan. That's wonderfully put. And I think it's right. Like, so for the academics in the program, will provide the leadership skills and competencies. We'll teach you business principles. But for a lot of students, then the MBAs, the opportunity and the benefit of doing an MBA is much more than that. It's access to a really strong professional network, access to job opportunities, future-proofing your employability as well. So I think the last graduate then that we're going to call on then is Morgan. So Morgan, if you wouldn't mind just providing a few words in terms of your experience of the MBA and how you benefited from it, please.
Yeah, good. Excuse me. Good afternoon, Ronan. Hello, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
I suppose I was maybe in a slightly unusual position. It's about 30 years since I'd undertaken formal study back in the 90s. I was happy to admit I'm in my mid-50s. And initially I found it quite intimidating going back into a learning environment. But I really liked the way the course was structured, and it was kind of layered, that you grew with the course, and you learned as you went along. And maybe having completed that, you can see how clever the course was structured and how it did build piece by piece. I found it gave me great time to just take back and reflect. So I really liked the end of week, time out of work, where we created that space to learn. There was a brilliant network of colleagues that we were working with. I'm the head of sport in UCC. I'd worked globally and traveled to many different countries. And I suppose I was working with people that I thought maybe were far more clever and far more sophisticated in their business, but you begin to realize that everybody contributes in their own way. And a lot of us were intimidated, but we all, as we got to know each other, had the same fears and insecurities. And it was interesting talking to some of my other colleagues who are slightly of an older vintage as to why we were doing it. And basically, we began to see that the world is changing, and it's changing fast. And as the topics that we debated during the course, we started in the pandemic and we ended up in the middle of a new European war, and all of the impact of what that does to daily life. It gave me insight into supply chains. It gave me insight into the way world is changing, managing talent. There was a phrase that a few of us came back to, said, you have to unlearn what you learn and know, and then almost reconstruct your knowledge. I found that the MBA really upskilled my mindset and thinking, and brought me into what are the next generation of challenges that we're all facing, of which there are not a lot of answers to, but you're getting a lot of new questions and new frameworks in how to deal with these challenges. I thought that it really allowed you to explore who you are, where you've come from, and those journeys and experiences that you've got, and then to start sharing them and unpacking them with the other colleagues on the course. So I got great support and advice. I think the team and the 27, 30 other people, so there's about 25 other people on the course, we really lifted each other along. You got to work with everybody in the groups and then brought that back, and there was great support in that. It was a terrific group of people, and we were very lucky and very fortunate how well we lifted each other in each of the different assignments. I think as I went through it, I learned there's a formula to doing assignments. I was intimidated by going back to studying and doing those. There is great support and help in UCC, and there is a formula for how to do assignments. And once you begin to crack that, it falls into place. Finally, I'd say that what it has done for me, it's given me new language in which to have different conversations with people. I found that I went from sort of a management perspective to a leadership perspective, and it really sharpened my leadership skills and real understanding of what a modern leader has to do and the challenges that you face. And it's interesting, sort of 3 months after just finishing, coming up for air, is that I'm now going back into relearn all of the material that maybe went over my head a little bit. So there's a huge body of knowledge to reflect on, to learn and to develop. So I found it incredibly beneficial. I think it really developed my leadership skills, which is Interesting at my stage in my career. I think it's completely given me a whole new lease in life, and I'm really looking forward to the next many years of working and building on that with a whole new range of tools and information to build on. So I would encourage anyone that is feeling intimidated, you can break it down into 4 quarters. I really enjoyed the summers off because it was a break away from that intense learning. I appreciated those 2 blocks of summers. I think you have to be organized. I think you have to be committed. You do need that support, but it is very achievable. And if you break it down into small chunks, it's a fantastic experience. I'm happy to answer any questions, Ronan and Michelle, on that.
That's wonderful. Thanks very much, Morgan. I think our students are our best ambassadors of our program, and it's really heartening to hear you, Morgan, and Elaine and Alan speak about the program, because we learn a huge amount from the cohort as well. And there is that.
Ronan, I might add one other thing there.
Yep.
And I think Morgan touched on it at the end too. I think like we were in the same position you were in just over 2 years ago now, and the hesitance we have before signing up for the MBA, a lot of it is down to the perceived workload of it. But if you're smart with how you use your time, like for our group, we went through, we're in the heart of the COVID pandemic. Morgan mentioned that there was a European war by the end of it. I had 2 daughters under 5. We had our 3rd daughter at the beginning of the 2nd semester. A few other people had kids on it too. Like, if you're smart with your time and you break it down into chunks, you can still have a fun social life. And you just need to be a bit smart. And if you're on this call, you're probably a high achiever and you're good with your time management. So don't let that be the reason that you won't go for something like this, because it's very achievable and there's plenty of support on the course that will help you get over the line. So, yeah, I just think that's important.
Elaine, I think if you're still on the call, you spoke to me about this at the end, towards the end of the course, where you told me that perhaps you had more time. Like, I'm not sure if you're still there, but you had a great insight into this. We had a discussion towards the end of the course, and you gave me great insight how this course had managed to save you time, because you got so much quicker at making decisions, both professionally and personally.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So to Alan's point, travel was my baby, or distraction through the course, particularly through the semester 3. And I actually found that it made my decision making much quicker. I had the confidence to make decisions quicker, and I used the techniques that we'd gone through to make better decisions faster. And now that I'm out of it, I do have to admit that someone in my life turned around to me and said, "You don't know what to do with yourself at the moment, Elaine," because I've now found this extra time in my life, but I'm now trying to figure out ways to learn more things. And that joy of learning, I think, Michelle, while that wasn't quite the question you asked, I have found a joy in learning that I didn't think I actually had before the MBA, and I truly have found it since I've done the MBA.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Elaine.
We do have one question in the Q&A for Morgan. Morgan, can you share your secret formula for doing assignments?
I love it.
Yeah, it took me a while, Ronan. I was a very slow learner, I can tell you. Patience is the first part of the formula. No, there's UCC Library, and there's a program led by Kathy Bradley, and they actually just give you a lot of resources and materials on how to do assignments. And again, as I said, it took me a while, but they're on the website, and they break down what a reflective assignment is, what a discursive assignment is, what different types of assignments, and there is a formula of how to do those. They take you through those, and if you begin to apply that sort of formula, you begin to break an assignment down into its component parts, and there's a sort of a beginning, middle, and end of each different sort of section. It did take me a while to get it, but by the end, I'd sort of, well, that's the formula. I cracked it. So the resources are there, and the help is there, and we learned a lot from each other doing it, Ronan.
Great, thanks, Morgan. Now, I might introduce Senan Ensko now to Senan, if you wouldn't mind giving an overview of the application process for interested participants on the call, please.
Thanks, Roland. Hello, everyone. It's great to see so many people on the call today. So again, just to echo everyone else, thank you very much for taking the time to join with us this afternoon. Just before I go into the application process, just something there just to echo in terms of what Morgan was saying in relation to support in terms of the study skills and that. Just to say that when you are an MBA student with us here in UCC and CUBS, the full gambit of UCC support services are available to you, so obviously there's the student center, there's the study skills center that Morgan was talking about. You have access to hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of articles, books, online journals through the UCC library. You have access to all the student support services, the careers, UCC's career services there as well. There's even the Mardyke Arena down with Morgan. Again, you can avail of that. So again, just to note that. So listen, so my name is Senan, and I am the program administrator for the MBA program. So I suppose in terms of anyone who's looking to make an application to the program, or maybe looking at getting some guidance on how to seek their employer support for the program, I'm available at any stage to be contacted, and I can talk you through the process from our side. So in terms of the chat facility for the webinar today, I have just uploaded 2 documents, which I hope everyone can see. The first one is just the UCC Executive MBA application process overview. And also I've put up a document which again just gives an overview of how you may go about seeking employer support for your MBA. So I suppose in terms of the MBA itself, we do have a number of application thresholds which we do ask people to meet when they do apply to us. So normally we would be looking for somebody with a primary honours degree, which would be a level 8 degree. But if you do have an ordinary level degree and a number of years of managerial experience, we're very, very happy to talk to you as well. And again, I can provide more detail offline about that if you'd like to contact me directly. So I suppose the important thing then, obviously, look, the educational background is important, but also in terms of your managerial experience, we would be looking for 3 years of significant managerial experience or responsibility for as one of our entry threshold requirements as well. In terms of the application process itself, all the applications are made through an online portal on the UCC website, which is ucc.ie/apply. And again, people can go on there to the postgraduate courses option. You are asked to create an account on that portal, and once you have created that account, straightforward process, again, just entering your contact details, your generic biographical details, you then can proceed to seeking out the MBA executive and the taught postgraduate option. And again, you can commence your applications there. As part of the process, we do ask you to upload your educational qualifications and your transcripts. Now, if you happen to be a UCC graduate, then, and you can remember your student number, then you're in luck, because our student records and examinations office will be able to source all that behind the scenes and upload it to your application form. So as I say, that's if you're a UCC graduate. If you're a non-UCC graduate, what we will be looking for and we will require is a copy of your final year transcripts, examination transcripts, which would show the title of the degree that you completed, and also the final grades that you received in that degree. So just a word of caution, I suppose, on that. That can be a little bit time consuming if you do have to go off and source those from other institutions. So just give yourself a little bit of time on that maybe. In terms of any non-primary degree qualifications, so if you've done master's qualifications, again, similar thing, we'd look for you to be uploading information about that. And also then if there's any professional development qualifications that you feel that would be relevant to your application, again, feel free to upload information in relation to those also. We do then also, I suppose, seek some additional information about your current role and your current occupation. So again, we ask you to go into a bit of detail about that. And then we also ask you to go into some detail about positions that you may have held in the past. There is a motivation piece as well, where we do, I suppose, ask for a short motivation piece where we ask you just to go into a little bit more detail about your career trajectory to date, the skill sets that you have developed over time, and also, I suppose, really where you would see yourself going with this qualification, where it would fit into not just your career planning, but your overall professional development and even your own personal development. So again, that's always something that is of value for the directors to see. And then finally, I suppose, in terms of the application, we would also look for 2 referees to respond in relation to their views of you, I suppose. We would expect one of those referees to be the person that you're reporting into currently. The second person, it could be a previous manager or an executive within an organization, company, that can provide a good overview of your skills and abilities. So as part of the process, you're just asked to identify who the referees are. You're asked to enter their email addresses, and then they are contacted then directly by us in relation to returning those. So I suppose it's just important to say that the process itself, once you commence it, it is quite straightforward, and there's no kind of nothing to fear as part of the process. It is very straightforward. The portal is very, you know, in terms of navigating around it, it's very clear. It's very direct. We would encourage people to make early applications, I suppose, because obviously, as Michelle and Rona would have pointed out at the outset, you know, it is quite an intimate and limited numbers program. So I suppose we do encourage people to make applications early. Once you have completed an application and submitted that application on the process, you can normally expect to hear back from us in relation to an offer within 10 working days. So it's very clear, or very quick and clear. If you are receiving an offer from us, I mean, that's something very strong to be able to go back to your company with, to say, look, these people have great faith in me and great faith in my abilities and my potential as well. So look, in terms of introducing that as a conversation internally, or even leveraging it for a decision in your favor, that's a very strong thing to be able to take to the table with you. So I suppose what I will ask you to do is just have a look at the 2 documents that I have uploaded. As I say, the application overview really just reiterates what I have said over the last couple of minutes. In relation to seeking your employer support for the application to the MBA program, again, really just have a look at the documentation. We've kind of outlined obviously the personal benefits in relation to completing this MBA. There's also organizational benefits, as our graduates have pointed out. You know, the combination of both is very powerful in terms of your own personal and professional development. So again, just have a look at those. In terms of your employer support, you know, look, you're going to be asking them for both time support and possibly for financial support as well. So again, we just kind of break down the ask in relation to the time ask. And again, we've broken it up in terms of how many lecture blocks you can expect in parts 1, 2, 3, and 4. Go into a bit of detail, basically how many days you will be out of the office in year 1, how many days you would be out of the office in year 2. But also, I suppose, we just give a little bit of advice on how to frame that conversation that you would be having internally in relation to I suppose putting it across in a very manageable format for your company and your organization to understand. In terms of the financial support, again, look, that will vary, I suppose, from company to company, organization to organization. But again, we would just point out, you know, a few things that you should be having a look at. You know, what is the company policy on employee support? Has the company sponsored MBA or executive education in the past? If yes, what benefits have accrued to the company and the individual who undertook the program? Do any of the senior managers have an MBA? And if they do, can they be approached and asked to support your case? So I suppose that really is, and obviously, you know, ascertain if your competitors have a policy of supporting people to do MBAs and leadership education for their executives. And I mean, if they do, you need to be highlighting that as they're having a competitive advantage. So again, I suppose have a look through that documentation. I'm going to pop my contact details into the chat now as well. If you have any questions or queries in relation to the application process, in terms of any follow-up questions in relation to this webinar, feel free to contact me at any stage. more than happy
Thanks
to talk.
so much, Senan. I might just jump back in there and reiterate that I suppose one of the 4 core principles of UCC is accessibility, and that transfers directly into the business school and into the MBA. So please, I think some of our graduates mentioned it, that the MBA is a very accessible program, and the application process is open to all different types of backgrounds. Where we have some criteria there in place, there is also a little bit of leeway in how it is that we judge those criteria. So if you do review the criteria and you see something that you're not sure about, please don't take it as that disregards you. In many instances, there's ways around that, or things that we can look at to explain or to include you in the program based on your unique background and experience. So please do reach out to us if you see something that you think limits your suitability for the program, and check that with us before you disregard making an application. And the second thing, I suppose, we're seeing a lot in the chat function about the delivery structure. Again, just to be very clear, it's Thursday, Friday and Saturday, approximately once a month during term time. So we can give you the dates for those already now to discuss with your employers and your various organizations, but it isn't every week. The traditional MBA structure of every Friday and Saturday has now been replaced with this block structure to enable a more balanced approach to learning and to ensure more embedded learning. And then very finally, I suppose, again, while we have a deadline of 3rd of July attached to the closing date, we really want to reiterate that that's the closing date and that we are accepting applications on a rolling basis. So if you make an application today and that application is submitted, it's reviewed by the MBA team here in UCC within 10 working days. And we either offer you a place in the program or explain to you why not. We will be limiting it to 30 or approximately 30 people. So again, we much prefer this rolling application than waiting until the 3rd of July to make an application. Is that it, Ronan and Sen? Is there anything else at this point where we think we might want to reiterate anything?
We just do have one question from Seamus.
Okay.
Seamus appears to really interesting question. So Seamus was asking if is this an MBA entirely business corporate oriented, or is benefit to somebody committed to developing leadership? I think so. So Seamus, the actual strategy of the business school is shaping leaders for a sustainable future. So our MBA is kind of built with that strategy in mind. So I suppose even so, like ideologically, I wouldn't be able to stand over an MBA that was purely driven with maximizing shareholder value, for example. Yeah. My background is human resource management. So it's how do we manage people? How do we manage people in for sustainable careers? And how do we invest in people? How do we motivate people? I think most of the modules are designed with that in mind around the idea, and that's the whole kind of centrality of the leadership development framework. How do we develop people to become sustainable leaders for a better future? So if we're happy to talk more about you offline about that if you want, but I would say no, it's definitely not designed around the maybe very stereotypical idea around what an MBA may have looked like 20 years ago.
Morgan, you might be able to talk to that a little bit as well, coming from a non-profit organization, and there was others in your class as well that you might speak on their behalf.
Yeah, I think each of the modules are flexible, that you can shape them into any topic that you want to. So whether you're in the social sector or the business sector, the pharma sector, the engineering sector, at the end of the day, you need to be able to formulate a message, develop a vision for what you want to achieve, and then communicate that out and work out how you get there. So the MBA allows you to do all of that. And I suppose it gives you a new set of language and tools in which to articulate that. So I work in the sports sector, and I'm now able to have new conversations with the president of UCC around how we develop sport in UCC and share our vision with the wider community. So that's very much in that social development space. But I think what it gives you is new insights and new ways of thinking about that, and maybe different ways of shaping arguments, and you can, constantly chip away at that over the period of 2 years.
Super, thanks, Morgan. Elaine or Alan, would you like to add anything there? I think you're our best place to address some of these issues as well from your experience in the class.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with everything Morgan said. Like from a social change and development point of view, there are modules there, like the ethics module, the sustainability module. We had like Tom Cronin, the whistleblower for the in the Department of Defence, came in to talk to us about what it takes to bring about change in like really traditional structured environments. And developing leadership is it's the cornerstone of the MBA, and the personal leadership project that you do with Tom Garvin at the end is incredible. So yeah, I totally echo Morgan's sentiments, and the modules are there as well to support bringing about social change and development. It's really good.
Super, thanks, Alan.
And I'll just agree with everything.
Great. Thanks, Elaine. Anthony, Tom Lawton, Tom Garvin, Vincent, is there anything else that you'd like to add this afternoon from based on what you've heard from our graduates and the discussion taking place?
I would like to just say one thing. I've been teaching on MBAs for 30 years, I think, and I'm on record saying publicly that the last cohort was the best cohort I ever experienced on an MBA, and it's a reflection of the fantastic standard of participant who ponies up for the MBA and UCC. They were truly outstanding, every one of them.
Great, thanks, Tom. I actually recognise a couple of the names on our attendee list today, and I think some of them might be on the call as previous graduates. I could be wrong, but I think I recognised a couple of the names and email addresses, so I think we have some really strong graduate alumni of UCC coming and showing interest on the MBA at various stages. So if I'm correct, thank you all. It's lovely to see some of the familiar names coming back again. Anybody else, Vincent or Tom? Oh, yeah, I can see you're both still there.
Yeah, nothing further to add from me, Michelle. Again, just to reiterate everything that's been said, and the three speakers we had were fantastic students and fantastic people. I think the people part is really important. You know, I think just the spirit, the ethos, the camaraderie that's there, and the connection, I guess, between faculty and student as well in the learning journey is a really important part of what Tom Garvin was intimating there as well. I think is a really important part of the program. And you don't get that everywhere, to be frank. You don't get that in every program, so that's really important.
Absolutely.
Michelle, I'll just to reiterate everything, and I guess, you know, to everybody, it's great to see that we've held so many as attendees throughout the entire piece, but I guess, you know, encourage everybody that if there's still questions after today, to, you know, this is the first or the ongoing engagement, I guess, with us within the business school and on the MBA, and to reach out and to ask the further questions and so forth. And again, to Michelle's point, I think, you know, to get in, encourage people to get in early and make the decision, because sometimes that it's making that decision can be the boldest step, but it also, I guess, when it's made, you're setting yourself up and you're moving into the learning space at that point in time, you know. And I think, you know, the discussions that go on in classes, the experiences, and I think it's you know, we talk about work and life now as moments of and experiences, and I think this is when you talk to people on MBAs, it is often those interactions between peers and various contributors that is what ultimately what adds, and it might be the unexpected learning that comes out of some of those discussions at times. So I said, hopefully, I look forward to meeting many of you in the next cohort of the MBA, and to join the increasingly long-standing graduates that we have on the MBA here.
Michelle, if I could just say one thing I do miss is some very good coffee and bun shops around Laps Quay. So that's good for the waistline or not, but it's a fantastic environment downtown Cork, and that is one of the things I do miss on a Friday. So it's maybe another good reason, if nothing else is inspired, is that the Cameron Bakery and all of that around the corner, it really does add to the waistline.
Thanks, Morgan. That's super. Guys, if you have any last minute questions, you might just start populating the chat function. And again, as Anthony just said, we don't expect any of you to sign up for the MBA based on attending the seminar this evening. We really think this is the first touch point, and we really would encourage you to reach out to us, to Ronan, to Senan and I, and most people that apply to it before they begin an MBA program will generally speak on a one-to-one basis with one of the MBA team, and normally one of the past graduates that kind of closely aligns with their personal career development as well, before they actually formally begin the MBA process. So, you know, Morgan, you've spent a couple of hours talking to people who are considering doing the MBA, as has Elaine and I think Alan as well. So it's just a first touch point, and we'd encourage you to keep the conversation going from now, and gain momentum on that decision, because time can slip and the decision can slip from you. Ronan, will I pass to you to close up and synopsize and let us know if there's anything that we've forgotten?
Yeah, no, I don't think there's anything else. I said, be delighted to continue this conversation with any of you who do have any follow-up questions. Please do reach out to us. We really appreciate your time attending this evening. I'd like to thank all of the panelists, all of the academics who've given an overview of their module, in particular our graduates and who've spoken so enthusiastically about the program.
Okay, super. So all of our attendees, thank you very much, and we look forward to hearing from you in the coming days. And thank you again for attending. We'll say goodbye for now. Thank you, everybody.